Good evening, everybody. I'm Haven Shoemaker. I'm the state's attorney for Carroll County. I want to welcome you all to the 9th annual Drug Overdose and Prevention Vigil. Now, if you would, please rise for the presentation of colors by the Carroll County Sheriff's Office Color Guard and the singing of our national anthem by Detective Jason Earhart.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming? And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may be seated. Once again, on behalf of the entire Carroll County State's Attorney's Office, I want to welcome you to the 9th Annual Vigil. For those of you in attendance, I hope that you've had an opportunity to watch the video that we've played this evening. The video and photo tables represent many of the faces of the tragedy of overdose. And although we can't read the names of every person who has passed from the heartbreak of overdose, we wanted to make sure that there were outlets where other victims could be remembered as well. We're reminded tonight of the importance of having an opportunity to come together as a community to celebrate, grieve, support, and remember. We certainly grieve and remember those loved ones, family, and friends who we've lost to an overdose. We celebrate and support those in recovery, whether it be for 1 day or 1,000 days. And we support those continuing to struggle with addiction and want them to know that there are people who care and are willing to help them with their struggle. Now, we're fortunate this evening to have several dignitaries from the community present who not only have supported our office in the fight against substance use disorder, but have supported our community partners and the community as a whole. So please hold your applause until all the dignitaries have been announced, And as a disclaimer, if I leave out anybody, I sincerely apologize. So from our law enforcement partners, we have Sheriff Jim DeWeese. We have Detective Sergeant John McGee of the Maryland State Police. We have Chief Tom Ledwell of the Westminster Police Department. From our legislative delegation to Annapolis, we have Senator Justin Reedy, Delegate Chris Tomlinson, and Delegate Eric Boucher. From the Carroll County Board of Commissioners, we have Commissioner Kenny Kyler, Commissioner Tom Gordon, and Commissioner Ed Rothstein. We have our Clerk of the Court, Heather DeWeese. We have Westminster Councilman Kevin Dayhoff. We have Carroll County Health Officer Sue Doyle. And Local Behavioral Health Director Kathy Baker. Let's give them all a round of applause. As we gather for this annual vigil, I am heartened to share some positive news amidst the solemnity of this occasion. In 2023 and continuing into 2024, our community has witnessed a decline in fatal overdose numbers, with 41 lives lost in 2023 compared to the 54 we lost in 2022. And while each loss is deeply felt, and I believe that even one is one too many, the reduction offers a glimmer of hope and reaffirms the impact of collective efforts in prevention and awareness. It's a testament to the resilience and dedication of everyone here tonight, and I firmly believe that events like this one play a crucial role in fostering understanding, support, and ultimately in saving lives. In the past, there was a prevailing notion that individuals grappling with drug issues who subsequently engaged in nonviolent criminal behavior related to their addiction deserved punishment. And we even had a judge say in court when the state requested drug treatment as a condition of probation that, quote, if the defendant wants drug treatment, they can get it themselves, end quote. Now that attitude has certainly changed. Certainly there are cases where punishment is appropriate. But more people now realize that substance use disorder is a disease, and that folks with a disease need treatment. Tonight we come together not only to honor those we have lost, but also to reaffirm our commitment to prevention, intervention, and support. Our presence here signifies our shared resolve to confront the challenges of addiction with compassion, empathy, and action. Through education, outreach, and community support, we strive to break the cycle of addiction and to prevent further tragedies. Let us draw strength from one another as we unite in our mission to create a safer, healthier future for all. I like to think that events like tonight's vigil have played a small part in helping change the perception of addiction. But this event is not isolated in the work that has been done to change the outlook on substance use disorder. Throughout the community, there is work done daily by many other people, groups, and organizations to change attitudes and lives. Our law enforcement partners take a very proactive approach in encouraging treatment for those they have contact with on the front lines. The Carroll County Health Department, Carroll Hospital Center, and Westminster Police Department peer programs have provided mentors and positive role models to those in the recovery community. Our local nonprofits have worked with our court system to ensure that there are sufficient treatment options for individuals facing the possibility of incarceration until a bed is available in treatment. The work and actions of all these people and more are what is helping to change attitudes. And when we can change attitudes, we can provide an environment where those in addiction will feel safe and supported when they reach out for help. That feeling will move us in the right direction in continuing to reduce the number of overdoses suffered by our friends, our families, and our loved ones. Now I'd like to call up Tim Weber.
So tonight I have the honor and the privilege to introduce our first speaker. And I can tell you that Brian is the essence of recovery. I've known Brian since he walked into treatment, and I've known him very closely for 7.5 years now. He is the president of the Triangle Recovery Club. He owns and operates 2 sober living homes here in Carroll County and helps tons of men after hours, during hours. You can ask his wife. And I can tell you that Brian is the person that when I'm not acting right, my wife says, I'm going to call Brian. And I know if she calls Brian, he's going to show up at my door and ask what's going on. That's the kind of person Brian is. And so I'm going to have my friend come up, and he's going to share with you guys a little bit. Brian Kimmel.
My name is Brian Kimmel. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I have a sobriety date of November 16th, November 15th, 2016. I usually say at 11/15/16, and it goes out a lot easier. Not good at reading, and I definitely don't have notes. It's just a pamphlet thing. And he sent me this thing, and it said, a recovery perspective. And I didn't know the word, so I had to call my wife and ask her. I sent it to her. I said, what's this word? I don't even know what I'm talking about tonight. And I'm going to apologize now. I just always speak from the heart, and I'm passionate about this. And I prayed and I asked God to please help me curve my tongue to not curse at all. And those of you that know me, I'm just apologizing now. So I lived in active addiction for a very long time. I didn't get sober until I was 31 years old. And You know, I used, and you know, I thought that this world would be a lot better off without me in it, was the mindset that I had in late October of 2016. And I walked around my father's house with a loaded shotgun. And every room that I went into, there was a reason why I couldn't do it. Today, I know that was God. Back then, I didn't. It was just, well, this didn't work because this didn't work, and I always could blame it off. And I'm going to get this out of the way right now. My father's here tonight, and this man never gave up on me. And he supported me when I was young, tried to help me through my disease, but finally at one point in life, and this is what helped me so much once I got sober, you know, he stopped supporting me. He turned his back on me, not turned his back on me, he loved me from a distance when I was unable to be loved. And now that I'm doing the right thing again, I have my father back in my life, and he is my biggest supporter yet again. So I went and my mom called me, another one. Never gave up on me. She said the same thing as she said to me a million times when she called me that night when I had that gun. She said, honey, we're going to get you help. And the next morning, the only thing that was different was that I was willing to receive the help the next morning. It was still bad enough to go do something about it. And I went to Access Carroll. I had a drug evaluation. Needless to say, I passed. And they said that they would have a bed for me in 3 to 5 days at Shoemaker. And I could not. When I got that call, I was supposed to be there at 11. I didn't get there until 7:30 that night because I had 3 flat tires and traffic was pretty bad. And if you know anything about addiction, I just could not go in without getting that last one. And I got there and I really didn't like it because it was like a classroom setting. They made you read. They had you fill out pamphlets. They wanted you to learn about the disease of addiction. Well, I lived the disease of addiction for a very, very long time, and I thought that I could help them learn something, was the attitude that I had. And but what they did have, they had a 12-step meeting every night. And through my disease, I had a traumatic brain injury. I got drunk and I fell down a flight of stairs. It wasn't nothing to write home about, but I severed some brain or nerve in my head that left me deaf on my left side. And so I was told that the winners sat up front and they paid attention. And because of my disability, I guess you would call it, I had to sit up front. I had to pay attention. And I heard some things that in that treatment center, there was 3 things that I heard. My best friend Brian Coleman passed away 12 years ago, December 23rd, and there was a guy that came and he spoke, and from his message, he left the treatment center that I was. He left the treatment. My buddy left the treatment center that he was leaving to go work at parole and probation in Frederick County, and something drove me that night to just write my name and my phone number down and ask him to hold me accountable, because through my disease, I have been in a lot of legal trouble. And that was the first time in my life I ever asked for trouble. I asked, to hold me accountable. The very next day, there was a husband and wife. They came in and they spoke, and I could tell by what they said was where they were from was Mount Airy, where I grew up. And I went up and I spoke to Miss Donna afterwards, and she just, real quick, because I know I don't have a lot of time, she says, do you know where Old West Falls and Buffalo Road is? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. My best friend, Brian Coleman, lived 2 houses up from that intersection. And in speaking with her, she said, do you remember about 12 years ago when that bad four-wheeler accident happened and the boy got flown out shock trauma? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. That was my best friend, Brian Coleman, that got hit by a car. Well, he hit a car with his four-wheeler. The very next day, like I said in the beginning, I couldn't read very well, and my sister wrote me this very long, beautiful note. And I couldn't read it. It was in cursive. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care what you guys thought about me. I asked somebody for help. And they read that letter to me. And it says in the letter, it says, do you remember when I told you Brian Coleman came to me in a dream and told me I didn't have to worry about my baby brother anymore because he was your guardian angel now? That was right then and there when I knew that there was something out there greater than myself. It was 3 things that were unexplainable that opened the door to me that there could possibly be something. And I ran with that little bit of a belief. And over the last 7.5 years, I guess, I've turned it into a faith of something that I can believe in. My goal is to help people. I honestly, truly believe when I did what I did for myself and worked my steps, and I accepted that God gave me a second chance to be on this earth to help people. I put myself through what I put myself through for the experience to help other people that have been through what I've been through. And once I accepted that, it was like so easy to wake up with, a go for life again. Like I had a mission. I had something to do on a daily basis. All I had to do was not do what Brian wants to do, because Brian's first thought still sucks to this day, I'll tell you, straight up. I met my wife in recovery. I have a son today, and if you listen to the name that my best friend was, my son's name is Coleman. I got to name him after my best friend. My wife came with 2 other children that I can proudly stand up here in front of you guys today and say that I am 1 step closer as of last week to fully adopting those kids. This is what recovery has given me. It has given me so many opportunities to put me in the forefront to help other people. And I know, I'm tasked. Tim said that I'm, operator and owner of two sober homes. That blows my mind. Those are the sober homes that I went to, and they gave me the life that I have today, the lessons of how to be a man, how to be accountable, how to make my bed, and I don't do that anymore. It is an honor. It's a legacy, and that's the way that I treat it, that they have to be here because they gave me the stepping stones and the foundation that I needed to do what I do today. Tim said something about my wife. She is like, I said my dad's my biggest supporter, my wife's my biggest supporter. She turns a blind eye to those 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning phone calls. Like, you really gonna answer that? And I do, because it gives me the ability to help. Like, somebody I know would have done it for me. If I could say anything, if you're in here struggling, just please don't stop before the miracle happens. Believe in yourself. Give yourself a chance. I don't know why God chose me. I really struggled with doing this year because I didn't understand. I've had a lot of friends of mine that passed away from this disease, and I struggle with sometimes with why God gave me the opportunity to be the survivor when them men were so much more than I was. but I believe it's part of my purpose to continue to go and help people. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you for letting me share.
So it's my honor to introduce our next speaker. Beth Schmidt's transformation from a local stay-at-home teen mom to an advocate for addiction prevention was swift and profound. Tragically, her son, Sean, succumbed to a fatal fentanyl overdose on December 16, 2013, igniting Beth's passion for advocacy. Just 6 weeks after his passing, she began volunteering for public speaking events alongside the Carroll County Health Department. In a matter of months, she joined forces with other Maryland mothers to establish the nonprofit organization Maryland Heroin Awareness Advocates, dedicated to combating the heroin epidemic through awareness and prevention initiatives statewide. Beth's relentless dedication to her cause has earned her recognition from esteemed institutions such as the Maryland General Assembly, the Opioid Operational Command Center, and the Carroll County State's Attorney's Office. Her efforts, alongside those of her son's younger brothers, are prominently featured in a short film recounting Sean's story, which is an integral part of the Carroll County State's Attorney's Office's school substance prevention program called Special Ops. This impactful program has been presented in every Carroll County high school since 2015. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Beth Schmidt.
Thank you very much for that introduction. It's actually half of what I was going to say here anyway, so that helps out. I don't normally read from a script. I usually speak from the heart. However, earlier today, I kind of wrote from the heart, so I'm gonna try to read through this. I was asked to speak about how far we've come in Carroll County. A couple of these things are going to be repeats from what Mr. Shoemaker said. So first of all, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, I want to welcome you, and we're sorry that you're here, but we're glad that you found us. For those of you that do not know me, I am Beth Schmidt. I am a local mom of 3 boys that all graduated from Liberty High School, and I did lose Sean in 2013, just 2 days after his 23rd birthday. And again, I've been asked to say, how far we've come in the past 10 years, and there's a lot in addiction and grief that is ironic. So contrary to popular belief, public speaking is not my thing. I am painfully shy in my comfortable reality. However, that reality was shattered by Sean's addiction and his death from fentanyl. Sean's death was due to 100% pure fentanyl over 10 years ago. Unfortunately, that is not uncommon now, but it was 10 years ago. Never in a million years did we think that we would be here 10 years later battling fentanyl and substances the way we are now. Again, there is a positive and a negative here. In the irony, again, of addiction and grief, because we also never dreamed that we would have such an amazing and supportive community. So look how far we've come in Carroll County. Sean was a child and a man of many words, and he always had to have the last word, and he loved being the center of attention. I think maybe that's why his death had that unique distinction all those years ago, so that he could still have the last word, continue to be the center of attention, to bring more attention to the growing opioid and substance crisis, so that his voice and the voice of so many others that are now unable to speak would continue to be heard through me, through us, and through our community. Look at how far we've come. Brian was the one that was gonna make me cry. 10 years ago tomorrow, Tim Weber, Linda Auerbach, and a few others that are here in this room held a drug awareness event at Liberty High School. We were in the library at night. We had to be invited in. They reluctantly let us in. They did not want us to be there. Parents didn't want us to be there, but we pressed on. And now, 10 years later, the schools have that relationship with the state's attorney's office that was mentioned earlier. Of course, having this film in that program, again, we couldn't have seen that 10 years ago. Look how far we've come. When we held the very first Overdose Vigil, we were afraid to label it an annual event because we weren't sure how many people were gonna show up. We weren't sure if there was gonna be 100 people here, and 400 people showed up. 9 years later, this is one of the most talked about and attended events in Carroll County. Look how far we've come. I was also asked to share from a mom's perspective how far I personally have come. So I may make a lot of I statements here, but each I statement is actually a we statement and a community statement. I strive to be for others the person that I needed so badly when my son was struggling. I couldn't do what I do without the support of this community, and what I do to support this community. Look how far we've come. I was fortunate enough to find Linda, Laurie, Galloway, and Tim Weber shortly after Sean's death. None of us can remember exactly how that happened, so we're just gonna call it a Sean thing. This has helped me to move forward with a passion and a purpose. In the 10 years since Sean's death, I co-founded the nonprofit to help those struggling with addiction and help their families. Tim and I were two of the first boots on the ground Narcan trainers to just really get out there and saturate the community with Narcan and harm reduction and awareness. I became a certified family peer support specialist. I became an adverse childhood experiences facilitator, a mental health first aid facilitator, and I can now provide training on the brain and the disease of addiction. All of these I statements, with each new thing that I learn, I share with the community so that families can be more informed than my family was. Look how far we've come. So before I close, I need to say a little something about stigma. I think about stigma. I think about how it impacted my family and my son. We all live in a world of acronyms, and I can't say that I'm a big fan. But when we pull the word stigma apart, so many of us think struggle, trauma, isolation, grief, misinformation, and that all can lead to addiction. But what if we think about those letters again and we reframe them with hope and healing so that in our heads, when we hear that word, we can fight back. We can push back. I challenge you to think of the letters in this way. Stigma. Let's stand together to inform, guide, mentor, and advocate. Thank you very much.
Now for our, I don't usually have to raise that up when I speak. Now for our keynote speaker. Ike Dixon embodies the profound impact of substance use on individuals from all walks of life. He bravely shares his journey of reaching the pinnacle of his career, only to see it crumble under the weight of a substance use disorder. But Ike's story doesn't end there. He's here to impart a powerful message of resilience and hope to those still struggling, as well as to anyone in the audience who has loved ones battling similar challenges. So without further ado, allow me to introduce Ike Dixon.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name's Ike, and I am in recovery, and I can't believe I'm a keynote speaker. I have no idea how that happened. But anyway, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm here to share with you all some of my experience, not only in addiction, but in recovery. And it's funny, you know, how things can start off so innocently and turn out so disastrously. And that basically is my story. Because I started using drugs back in, I guess it was 1969, 1970, smoking marijuana. Other people were doing it. I was curious, basically. And I remember my mother telling me, it's gonna lead to harder drugs. It's gonna lead to harder things if you continue to do that. But I didn't listen to her. I continued to do what I wanted to do. And I smoked marijuana, and I started smoking hash, and I started taking pills, and I started dropping acid and mescaline, and I ended up getting thrown out of school. In the 11th grade, I was telling Steve, my friend, Cardinal Gibbons, that was my first consequence. The priest called me in, Brother Frank, and says, you gotta leave. You gotta get out of here, man. You can't have this. And so in the middle of the 11th grade, he wouldn't even let me complete the 11th grade. I had to go. And so that was my first consequence. And you know, you would think maybe that would be a wake-up call for me to say, hey man, you need to stop drugs, but that was just the beginning for me. And so I continued to use drugs, somehow managed to graduate from high school, and then I went to college. And this is an interesting story too, because my father wanted me to go to an HBCU, a historically black college university, of which there are many here in the United States, but I was hell-bent on going to the University of Maryland at College Park. You know why? Because it was a party school, and all my friends were down there getting high and partying and not going to class and having a good time. And I had been down there to see them. I would drive down there when I was in the 12th grade, and I'd go down there and take a look at what was going on. I'm like, this is where I want to go to school. And my parents couldn't understand, why are you so hell-bent on going to College Park? Well, that was the reason. There's another sign right there. Instead of me keeping my priorities in order and focusing on education, the disease of addiction right there was dictating my choices. The only reason I went to that school was to get high. That's all I did. And I didn't last very long there, needless to say. But anyway, I ended up dropping out, and I worked for a while. And I don't want to get deeply into this so much, but anyway, I managed to graduate from college. I got myself together somehow, and I graduated from college, and I started working. And my cousins over in DC, they were addicts too. You know, every time I would go over there, first they were smoking pot, then were taking pills. And then all of a sudden, they were using needles. They were shooting heroin and cocaine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they didn't take this thing to another level. And I didn't know how to do that, and they showed me how to do it. I stuck my arm out, and they injected me with that heroin, and I fell in love. And I would run over there all the time and get it, and then I had to learn how to do it myself because I couldn't keep running over to DC to get a shot of dope. And so I started learning how to inject myself with heroin and cocaine, and those became my drug of choice. Now, my parents knew, they didn't know the depths of my addiction. Early on, when I was in high school, you know, they had an idea of what was going on with me, and I want to give you all a little bit about how it affects families, because my parents were absolutely horrified at what I was doing, but I don't think they understood exactly what to do about it. They were like befuddled. They were like, what happened? You know, this isn't the son we raised. What's going on with them? And, you know, my mother was a quiet woman. She didn't say too much. But I remember my father was a tough guy. And one time, and he had some harsh words for me. He said, one day I was at the house, and he knew I was on drugs. He said, you know something? He says, why don't you go out in the street and let a truck run you over? Because you're no good to this family. That shows you the anger and the frustration that he felt toward me. He didn't disown me, but he didn't like what I was doing, and he made that real clear. But none of that stopped me from using drugs, man, you know? None of that was a wake-up call for me. And I continued on using drugs until, I guess, in the 80s, I ended up going into treatment for the first time. Finally got myself together enough to go into treatment. I had lost my job, and my mom wrote a check for $8,000 for me to go into a treatment center. And so I went, and I stayed in there for 30 days, didn't stay clean. After I got out, within 90 days, I remember getting my income tax refund, and money is a trigger. If you know addicts, we can't have sums of money in our pockets. Oh my God, as soon as I got that check cashed, I was off to the races. Back shooting heroin and cocaine again. Back in the mix, you know, right back in it, you know? And wow, it just, my life has been like in and out of recovery, in and out of the drugs, you know? It's been a lifelong struggle. And I remember, I'll tell you another story about my cousins who I talked about in DC. The older one, he ended up getting sick. He was on dialysis, and he had really, his body, addiction had ravaged his body to the point where he went into the hospital, and the doctor put him to a medically induced coma. And the doctor told my aunt, he's got so many things wrong with him, we have to do this. We got to put him down to try to treat him. And so they did. And miraculously, he came out of it. But guess what? A few days later, he walked out of that hospital. He signed himself out AMA against medical advice and went out and used drugs again. That shows you the power of this disease, because that's not the actions of a rational person. Nobody in their right mind would go out and do that. You'd sit in the hospital and try to get better. But he was so driven by the disease of addiction, it compelled him to walk out of that hospital and go back to what he knew best, and that was using drugs on the streets of Washington, D.C. And finally, in the next year, he died. And finally, the disease ultimately took his life. You know, and my other cousin, his younger brother, died too. And I remember my Aunt Cleo, one day, she said, "What did I do wrong?" And I said, "Auntie, you didn't do anything wrong. It's not your fault. They made their own choices. They chose this, you know?" And now we know today, and that's one of the things that I want to convey to you all this evening, that whatever you're going through with your loved ones, it's not your fault. The disease of addiction is far more powerful than we are. You're just as powerless over your loved one as I am over the drugs. Because once I put them drugs in me, I cannot stop. You know, there's some people who can drink and smoke weed and have a good time over the weekend and go to the Oriole game and go to the Raven game, and they can put it down and go to work Monday morning and there's no problem. I'm not one of them people, man. Once I start, I cannot stop. It's like round and around and around she goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. But most of the time, for most addicts, it ends up in jails, institutions, and death. That's where we go, man. That's just the reality of it. I've already been to jail. I've been to prison. I've been to multiple treatment centers. The only thing I haven't done is made the ultimate sacrifice by losing my life, and I've come close to doing that too. I mean, I don't even know how I'm still alive. I'm 68 years old, and I'm still here by the grace of God. I don't know how. I really don't, because I've put myself in some very dangerous situations. I've used all sorts of drugs, been around a lot of bad people, and could have very easily lost my life many, many, many years ago. But somehow I've been spared that ultimate, consequence. And I'll tell you, it's unfortunate. I remember when my mom was sick. My mom died in 2005. She had pancreatic cancer. I was clean at the time. And I sat there on the side of my mother's bed, and I said, "Ma," I said, "I'm sorry for all the problems I caused you and Daddy." And she stopped me. She said, "There's no need, to say any of that." And I think she was just comforted to know that her son was okay. And so she died in peace. She had peace of mind knowing that her son was clean. He was on the right path, you know what I mean? And so, the disease of addiction robs our loved ones of their joy and their peace, you know what I mean? My parents probably never had a moment's peace while I was out there using drugs, you know what I mean? Always wondering, always worrying, where is he doing? Where is he? Is he okay? I've heard some parents say they get a call from their loved one, he's locked up. Good. Good. He's in jail. Maybe he'll get some help. At least he's off of the streets. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's the wake-up call that we need, because most addicts don't wake up one morning and say, I'm gonna stop using drugs. That's not how this works, y'all. It ain't how it works. Something's gotta happen. Something bad has got to happen. Your wife has got to pack up and take the children with her. You got to lose your job. You got to get in a car accident. You got to have a non-fatal overdose. There has to be something in your life that captures your attention. And I don't know what that is. No one can decide for us when we're had enough from using drugs. That's one thing, that's a decision that only the addict, him or herself, can make. As a parent, as an aunt or uncle, you cannot make that decision for them. We have to make it for ourselves. I'm the only one that can tell myself when I've had enough, you know? Everybody gets to pick their own bottle, you know? It's your choice. You know, but the thing about the disease of addiction is once you're in its grip, you've lost the power of choice. You don't have a choice anymore. Yeah, you want to be a good son and a good husband and a good, worker, a good neighbor, a good friend, but the disease of addiction will not allow you to do any of those things. It didn't allow me to do any of those things. As much as I wanted to be a good person, I couldn't. I just could not be. I'm gonna be a liar, I'm gonna be a thief, I'm gonna be dishonorable, I'm gonna be untrustworthy, I'm gonna be unreliable, I'm gonna be all of those negative things. That's not the person that my parents raised. But all principles and morals and values go out the window once the drugs take over. It's like a spell has been cast over you, and you're in the grip of this thing, and it's very difficult to extricate yourself from it. It really is. Just think about people who try to stop smoking cigarettes. Have you heard anybody talk about how difficult that is to get off of cigarettes? Because nicotine is a drug. It's hard. It is hard to stop smoking cigarettes, man. It ain't easy. Same thing with drugs. It's hard, man. We need help. I know for me, I always had to be removed from society to get help. I cannot be on the street and get clean. Never happened for me. I always got to go away to a treatment center. I got to be removed from society, you know? I do. That's the way it had to happen for me. But see, I'm not a victim. You know, I made my own choices. I had plenty of opportunities to stop, but I didn't want to. My friend Steve Rocher over there, I used to be a state's attorney, and Mr. Shoemaker alluded to that a little bit. And anyway, crazy story, isn't it? We come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, man. This is an equal opportunity disease. Doesn't care what you did for a living. My father was in the House of Delegates. I heard them call out the members of the delegation here. My father used to take me down to Annapolis, and I would sit in his seat. I met the governor. This was way back in the day when Governor Agnew was there, and Marvin Mandel, and some people that were way before your time, probably, down in Annapolis. So them old heads, you know what I mean? But the point is, the disease of addiction doesn't care that my father was in the House of Delegates, or my mother was a lovely woman, or that I was raised properly. None of that matters, man. The disease of addiction will take anybody's life. It's like a tornado. It's a path of death and destruction through everybody's life that it touches. Not only the addict himself, but the families, the loved ones who have to sit there and witness this. And you're like, what the hell is going on? Why won't he get himself together? Why didn't she get some help? You know what I mean? Because we're gone, man. You know, we're under the spell of this thing, and it's like God only knows if and when a person is going to wake up and get some help. You know, it ain't easy. It is not easy. It is not easy. So don't blame yourselves. You know, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. This is something that's well beyond, you know, it's just a power greater than ourselves. It really is. It's something that it's just, it's beyond comprehension. It really is. I mean, I can only imagine the sleepless nights and all the worry and anguish that my parents went through, you know, dealing with me, because they certainly didn't raise me to be what I had become, but I became that. I mean, I got to the point where I didn't even like to look at myself in the mirror because I didn't like what I saw. I don't recognize that guy anymore. I don't know who he is, you know what I mean? And it's like, wow, it's just, and your world gets so small. All the good things I used to do in my life playing music, participating in sports, being involved in politics. All of that stuff goes by the wayside because the disease of addiction will destroy everything that's good in your life. If you do have something good in your life while you're using drugs, it ain't gonna last. The job is gonna go, the girlfriend is gonna go, the house, the car, all the bank account, all of that, man. I couldn't rub two pennies together in my addiction. All my money went to drugs, all of it. I couldn't pay bills, car repossessed, house in foreclosure. All of that. That's just the outward signs of unmanageability in my life. All of that, man. It's just completely disastrous. There's nothing good about addiction. Like they said, we say this in our recovery program, addiction is such a cunning enemy of life but we had lost the power to do anything about it, man. We know it's evil, but we lose the power to do anything about it, man. Once you get cast in the spell, that's it, man. You're done. You're gone, man. You're gone. I mean, it's like I said, it's just a miracle that I have been able to survive this, because I started in recovery in 1985, you know? So this ain't my first rodeo. This is not my first go around with this. This has been a lifelong struggle for me, but I never gave up, you know? And the last time, I'll tell you this, I was a state's attorney, got into private practice, things are going good in my life. And when my mom died, as I mentioned, I started to fall into a depression. I had never experienced the death of a loved one that close to me. And as you know, we only get one mom in life. There's only one mother that you get. There's nothing like a mother's love. And so somebody told me, said, Ike, maybe you need to go to grief counseling. And I said, I brushed it off. Nah, I'm okay. I'm all right. I'll get through it. And initially I did. I thought I was doing okay. But slowly but surely, the depression creeped in. And I started missing my mom real bad, and before you know it, I was smoking crack cocaine. And that's a hell of a drug. You talk about one is too many, 1,000 never enough. Oh my God, woo! And things went downhill slowly but surely. And it ended up with me committing a crime, being arrested. My clean date is January the 18th of 2010. You know how I remember that? That's the day the Baltimore County Police arrested me. Can't forget that, you know what I mean? That day will stick in my mind forever. And my father was so pissed at me, I'm thinking, oh, Daddy, he'll get me out of jail. He let me sit there for a whole week in the Baltimore County Detention Center. I said, God, I was calling, you know, it's like, come on, man, you know, $175,000 bail. Went over to the commissioner's office. He says, your father's posted your bail. Just sign the papers. He didn't even wait for me. He was so pissed. He didn't want to see my face. He just got him. And when I got out of the jail, some friends of mine in a recovery program says, we're going to get you in a treatment center. You need help. And that's where my recovery journey began this time, with that event. That was the event that got my attention. That incarceration, being jailed for that serious offense, was my bottom. And that's when I said, enough is enough. I surrender. Because that's the key to recovery. You gotta surrender. You gotta give up the fight, because it's a fight you can't win. It's like getting in the ring with Mike Tyson. You ain't gonna win. And if you keep getting back in there, he's gonna kill you. One of these times, you're not gonna get up off that canvas. And that's what addiction is. But you see, they say that addiction is a disease that tells us that we don't have it. And so as long as we think we can control it, we're compelled to continue to try to control this, despite all evidence to the contrary that my life is completely out of control. My drug use is completely off the hook, but I'm still trying to control it somehow. It's crazy. It's insanity. Like a friend of mine said, addiction is trying to make sense out of nonsense. It doesn't make sense to the layperson. It makes sense to me because I'm an addict. And you know, I don't know any of these people here on this table, but I do know them because I know addicts. I know how we behave. I know how we think. I know how we act. I know how we move, man. We're one of a kind. It's all the same disease, man. But it's incredible, man. It just destroys so many lives. And the loved ones that are left behind, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, it's just incredible, man. It's heartbreaking, it really is. It's just heartbreaking what the parents have to go through. That we put our parents through, we put our loved ones through this, but Addiction is a very selfish disease. We don't care about anybody but ourselves because we've lost the capacity to care about anybody but ourselves. That's all we care about. It's the next drug. Where am I going to get the next drug from? I don't care who it hurts. I don't care if my mother's crying and my father's angry at me or my wife is about to leave me. None of that matters. Doesn't matter because you're so focused, singularly focused on getting the drug because you're under its spell. You're under the spell of the disease of addiction, and that's all she wrote. It's got you by the throat, man, and it won't let go until you surrender. And that's what I had to do. They say you got to surrender to win. So I surrender so I can live another day, man. I get to live another day because I've given the drugs up. I've given up the fight, man. You win. You win. I can't beat. I've tried. I've tried all kinds of ways to moderate my drug use, changing drugs, promising myself I'm only going to do it on the weekends, or I'm not going to spend but so much money. All those promises go out of the window. All of them. I can't use drugs, period. I don't know what else I'm going to do today, but I know what I'm not going to do. I'm not getting high. And that's my priority. That's it, man. I'm staying clean today, y'all. One day at a time. Not for the rest of my life, but just for today. If I stay clean today, tomorrow will take care of itself. It's that simple. My life is very simple. It really is. And they say we have these principles and steps in our program, and I'll boil them down. It's like don't use, trust God, clean house, and help somebody. It's really simple. Just a simple program to get your life in order, man. You know what I mean? And to become the person that you were always intended to be. Because my parents never intended me to be a criminal. I mean, I found myself, I got a 10-year sentence. Here I am sitting in a division of correction at age 55. What the hell? How did I end up here? I'm in here with these guys. They're like been in our prison their whole lives. You know what I mean? It's like, and man, they's like, you come to here at age 55. This is your first bit? Yeah, man. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm like, wow. And I stayed in there until I was 61 years old, 6 years up in Hagerstown. Wasn't fun. You know what I mean? It's not meant to be fun. It's punishment. That's what it is. You're punished. That's right. That's what they do with people who do not know how to conduct themselves in civilized society. You get removed. The state's attorney just said it. Sometimes people got to be punished. I needed that. I didn't feel that way at the time, but as I look back on it, that's the best thing that ever happened to me was to go to prison, man. That's where I got my recovery. That's where I got my foundation, man. That's what had to happen to me. Like I said, everybody's got their own story. Everybody's got their own bottom, but that's just what had to happen to Ike, It's like, wow. Now I'm retired. My retirement doesn't look anything like I thought it would. This is not what I planned for myself, you know what I'm saying? But it's good, I'm collecting Social Security, I got a part-time job, and I'm living pretty good, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for what I have today, man, because I'm alive, and I'm living a good life, and I'm living a life according to the principles and the values that my parents instilled in me. And that gives me comfort. I'm feeling good about who I am. That's the most important thing. I'm at peace with myself, man, you know what I mean? And that's the most important gift I think of all, is to be okay with who you are. Because I was never okay with who I was, and that's one of the reasons I started using drugs, because I wasn't comfortable with Ike. I didn't like myself, man. I wasn't a good dancer. I didn't have any artistic talent. I couldn't find anything good about Ike. I was a good athlete. I could run. I was fast. I'm told to wrap it up. Okay. It's like, come on, man. I told you I could talk now. All right. Let me finish this up by saying, and I always say this prayer. I say, God, please, bless the souls of those who have gone before me. May they rest in peace in heaven. Bring comfort to their families and friends as we mourn their final absence from our lives. And I just hope you, as the loved ones who have suffered from this horrible disease, find some peace and some comfort in your life to know that you've done the very best that you could, and that, this was not your fault. You're not responsible for what they did. And so, anyway, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we'd now like to take the opportunity to recognize two individuals who have really stood out and made a difference in our community in the fight to reduce our overdose numbers. First of all, we have the Message of Hope Award. So that award is given to a person or organization which offers a message of sobriety and works to offer a better way of life and hope to those in the community who struggle with substance use disorders. We're deeply honored and filled with gratitude as we present Lieutenant Timothy Rife from the Westminster Police Department with this year's Message of Hope Award. So, Lieutenant Rife is in Special Operations and Community Outreach and is a part of the Crisis Intervention Team and a hostage negotiator with the Westminster Police Department. We're grateful for his steadfast dedication in surpassing the expectations of duty for the residents of Carroll County. His efforts in Special Operations and Community Outreach exemplify community policing and set a remarkable standard for service to our community. And accepting on behalf of Lieutenant Rife, who couldn't be here this evening, is Westminster Chief Tom Ledwell. The next award is the Robert Kirkland Award. And that award is presented to an individual who goes above and beyond his or her regular job requirements in their field of work to help those in the community touched by substance use disorder. Their hard work often goes unnoticed, and the motivation is for the simple act of helping others. Now, Bob Kirkland passed away in 2017. And for those of you who did not know Bob, he was a veteran of the U.S. Navy and served in Vietnam. He began his career with parole and probation in the drinking and driving monitoring program. But Bob is better remembered for his work as a court liaison for the Mountain Manor Treatment Center and was one of the first people in long-term recovery to work with the court system. If someone was willing to go to treatment, Bob would do whatever was in his power and sometimes went beyond his power to get that person into treatment. Bob had a relationship with every court system in Maryland. I can tell you I saw it firsthand. He could walk in any courtroom in the area, instead stand next to someone in need. Sometimes they were my clients, by the way. And it was pretty much a given that person would get the help that they needed. That was the influence of Bob Kirkland. Bob's hours were never 9 to 5, and he was known to meet people at the local Dunkin' Donuts over the weekend just to give them the direction that they needed. In 1986, Bob visited Bill Roby's office at Mountain Manor. At that time, Bob was engaged in the DUI monitoring program, and Bob sought a place to refer clients. So this moment marked the start of his journey with Mountain Manor. By the 90s, Bob became an official member of the Mountain Manor team. So today we have a special guest, Mr. Bill Roby, who I'd like to acknowledge. Bill, where is he?
as it's already been stated, I'm Bill Roby, and I'm the director up at Mount Manor in Emmitsburg. And Bob, as has already been said, walked in on me in 1986, and it began the beginning of a 30-year relationship. I believe he died in March of 2017. I remember that day very sadly. I remember it sadly because think of all the work that he could still be doing. He was a young man. But also looking back, look at all the people that he helped, okay? Bob was with Mount Manor. He worked with us. He worked with the employees. He worked with the medical profession. He worked with the judges. Had unbelievable rapport with the judges and respect from the judges. But he worked for the still suffering alcoholics and drug-addicted individuals that were still out there. That was his passion. That's what he worked for, okay? And I'm sure there's people in this room that have been touched by him, and all he would say to you is carry it on. Do the hard work. Do the work that's needed, because this disease kills people by the carload. It does not care. It does not care if you're a doctor. It does not care if you're a lawyer. It does not care if you're a housekeeper. It does not care about anything, okay? It takes you over. There's a lot of evidence that 1 in 7 people that use substances become addicted, okay? It's in the brain chemistry. There's nothing they can do about it except take responsibility and get better. And Bob understood that. He was proud of his recovery. He wore it like a badge of honor. So I'm really glad to be able to say a couple words about my dear friend Bob, so thank you.
So this year's recipient of the Robert Kirkland Award works for Carroll Hospital Center as a peer recovery specialist and has been one since 2019. We are deeply honored and filled with gratitude as we present Margie Nayoff from Carroll Hospital Center with this year's Robert Kirkland Award. So in her work at the hospital, she shows a deep commitment to supporting individuals struggling with mental health and substance use disorders. She supported countless patients through her ability to connect to people through her own personal recovery story. Over the years, she has also become an expert on the services and resources available in our community and has developed a broad network of collaborative partnerships with others working in the recovery field. She's a mentor for others newer to peer recovery work and uses her time away from work to invest in the recovery and wellness of others in our community. Let's give her another round of applause.
I really don't have to lift this up, but I feel like it makes me look taller. Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Weber, and I am the Community Education Liaison for the Office of the State's Attorney. And tonight, for me and many people in this room, this is a night that we come together to heal and to bond and to unite and honor friends and loved ones that we've lost through the years. It never gets easy. And I can tell you that I've said it a couple of times tonight. I'm reading names tonight of some people that were actually here last year. And I've done that for a few years. And I can tell you, myself am a person in long-term recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. Standing here today, I can tell you I haven't had a drink or a drug, and I've been substance-free since November 8th, 2003. Thank you. Thank you. I have a bunch of stuff written down, and I never read what I have written down. Just very quickly, tonight is just a very important night to me. I've been up here most of the day, as my coworkers could tell you. I've just been sitting up here planning for this, and Jennifer and all the people in our office that put this together. And it's important to me. It's important to me to show people like what Ike and Brian and Beth just did, show people that people recover from this. People can recover from a substance use disorder, and people can have a really good life. And it's really important for me to be able to express that. And what I want to do right now, I do this every year, and I'm going to do it tonight, like I always do. I want everybody in this room that's in recovery to stand up. Yeah. This is what I want people to know. If you know someone that's struggling, if you have a family member, a friend that's in need and needs help, these are the people to reach out to. These are the people that saved my life. It was somebody that had been there. We need our treatment programs, we need our counselors, and it's extremely important. But people who have lived the life that we have lived and show other people how to come out of that is vitally important. It is a privilege to be able to do that, but not only is it a privilege, I feel, just like Brian said, that it's a duty for me to hold my hand out and help the next person and show them that there is a way out, because there is a way out. All right, have a seat. Are you ready to sit down? Now's the part of the night where we read the names of all the people that we have lost through the years and recently. And this is a really hard time for me and obviously many of us in this room, family members. One thing that I will tell you is that I tirelessly go over this list and try to pronounce each and every name wrong. I assure you, I will not get them perfect. But I can tell you one thing, it's done from the heart and it's done out of love. Every name that I read. If by chance I miss a name, you come up here, is at the end I'm gonna have other people come up and get next to me, and I will make sure that I read a name if you didn't get it into us or if somehow it got left off. There's a lot of thought that goes into this. If I could now have Sheriff Jim DeWeese, Chief Thomas Ledwell, Detective Sergeant John McGee, and Councilman Kevin Dayhoff come to the front. Y'all get on each, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side. Did it right? Okay. As I read the names, step out into the aisle, come up and light your candles off of one of the gentlemen up front, and then let's encircle the portico. Aaron Stars, Alex Eberts, Alicia Hope Troxel, Amanda Heeb, Amanda Marie Knight, Amanda Trent, Andrea Nicole Rayner, Andy McDonald, Anthony Damara Jones, Anthony Hudman, Anthony Hunt, Anthony Johnson, Ashley Jenkins, Ashley Marie Hill, Ashley Sears, Augie Hart, Benjamin Fisher, Brad Mullen, Bradley Amos, Bradley Hanger, Bradley Herman, Bradley Rill Sr., Brad Greenberg, Brandon Smith, Brendan Huber, Brian Andrew Jennings, Brian Farrell, Brian Kenneth Collison, Brian Myers, Brianna Bentley, Brooke Capel, Brooke Ferrantino, Bud Cross, Carly Elizabeth Wantz, Kathy Liebknecht, Chance Yard Dog Dalton, Charles Schroeder, Christine Loudy, Christopher Hammer, Christopher Peterson, Christopher Zolek, Corey Lee Mason, Kristen Sanat, Curtis Brown, Dan Deladon, Darlene Butler, David Long, David Michael Cast, David Steinfeld, Derek Wilson, Desiree Schroeder, Donald White, Donnie Goodman, Eddie Kiesling, Elizabeth Louise Cheney, Emily Sullivan, Eric Cottrell, Eric Jones, Francis Dean Bourdreau, Garrett Kelly, Gregory Nelson, Haley Nash Beagley, Heather Phillips, Holly Sykes, Howard Smith, Jacob Melton, Jacob Patty, Jake Janika, James Baker, James Doyle, James Gates, James Jimmy Zumbrum, James McCann, Jason Berry, Jason Lee Brown, Jason Leister, Jason Swagger, Janine Ann Wallace, Jeffrey Thompson, Jeremy Limperis, Jesse Bird, Jesse Clappett, Jimmy Niven, Joey Veneri, John Christopher Romeo, John Keogh, John Michael Nieberlein, John Mitchell Cartret Jr., John Sheehan, John Schenkel, Jonathan Lee Carnegie, Jonathan Reinhardt, Jordan Cashmire, Jeff Bolista, Joseph Bolista, Ryan Bolista, Joseph Hamilton, Josh Wallace. Justin Bowen, Justin Grooms, Karen McLean, Kenneth Hornung, Kevin Joseph Guy, Kevin Mackey, Kevin Moran, Kevin Saul, Kimberly Anderson, Kristen Spurrier, Lanny Ray Charles Jr., Larry Williams, Lawrence Michael Kent, Liam O'Hara, Lindsay Gover, Louis Frock, Luke DeBell, Luther Smith, Mark Robert Stafford, Matthew Tyler Wolf, Matthew Basama, Matthew Bridenstine, Matthew Clark, Matthew Nonaman, Matthew Ott, Melissa Selden, Melody Johnson, Michael Arball, Michael Crockett, Michael Hayes, Michael Muse, Nicholas Muse, Michael Payne, Stacy Shea, Michael Shea, Michael Sheets, Michelle Myers, Nathan Cochran, Naeem Teague, Nicholas Philip Kibler Cole, Nicole Ranaletti, Noah Gover, Norman Willis, Rachel Broadbeck, Richard Holmes, Richard Murray, Richard Walters, Ricky DeMuth, R.J. Suggett, Robert Dwayne, Robert Dwayne Robertson Sr., Robert Gilkerson, Robert Haynes Jr., Robert Lofink, Robert McGarren, Robert T. Della, Robert Underwood, Russell Thomas Neal Jr., Ryan Kabaya, Ryan Mackey, Ryan Rositi, Samantha Og, Sarah Ann Mala, Sarah Freeman, Sarah Farmer, Scott Duncan, Scotty Broadfoot Jr., Sean O'Connor, Sean Schmidt, Seth Lara, Shailene Tracy Skaggs, Stanley Stosh Kolaski, Stephen Bollinger, Susan Grakey Kinney, Tawny Boucher, Taylor Smith, Taylor Sprague, Thomas Millender, Thomas Smith, T.J. Beatty, Tom Hall, Tommy Rowan, Tony Higgins, Travis Wovas, Trey Atkins, Tucker Lamb, Tyler Douglas Chavez, Tyler Daughtry, Tyler William Shipley, William Atwell Sr., William Joseph DeLauder, William Keith Linsner, William Smith, Zachary Keith Honesty, Zachary Olwan. And if there's anybody that's here that wants to light a candle, Bridget Smith. Nicholas Reed. Kendall Smith. Vicki Johnson and Rachel Skipper. Nicole Spinoli. Marcus Nix Jr. Donnie Davis. Sean Littlejohn. David Joseph Siderchuck. Doug Collins. Eric Snyder. Chris Shiramonte. Devin Miller.
Now I'd like to call upon Deacon Stephen Rocher to lead us in the benediction. Deacon Steve Rocher has served the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Baltimore at St. Charles Parish in Pikesville for the past 12 years. Now retired from the practice of law, Deacon Rocher served for 31 years as a prosecutor in the state of Maryland. His final 3 years as a prosecutor were here in Carroll County. Deacon.
Tim and Haven, thank you for allowing me this privilege that you've given me for several years here now to be at this memorial vigil. My friends, in dealing with the death of a loved one, we often seek a source of comfort and wisdom. For many, that is a power greater than ourselves, that some may call Allah, or Jehovah, or Yahweh, or Lord, or God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I believe in the power of prayer. My friend Ike Dixon spoke to us tonight, and long before his big trouble came up with the law, I could see, he was in private practice at the time, that he was having problems. We'll just put it that way. And I started to pray for him. I pray the rosary every day. And the 10th bead on the 4th decade had Ike's name on it. And to this day, it still does. So I believe in the power of prayer. So for those of you who may wish to do so, I invite you now to bow your heads and we will pray. O good and gracious God, we place ourselves before you this evening as we remember loved ones who have died as a result of being unable to loosen the grip of addiction. Our sense of loss can leave us frustrated, sad, angry, and empty. But we now turn to you, Father, to ask you to fill us with your Spirit. Let it be a spirit of wisdom, a spirit of healing, and a spirit of comfort as the days, weeks, months, and years pass. Help us to recall the good times we shared with those loved ones who are no longer in our physical presence. We pray that loving memories will drive away the pain of their untimely deaths, and those same loving memories will always keep them present in our hearts. We ask you too, Heavenly Father, to strengthen those who do their best to serve our brothers and sisters who find themselves in the bondage of addiction. Bless the first responders with patience that they need to render aid in the face of extraordinary circumstances. Bless those in the criminal justice system with the wisdom to address the issues that come before them in productive ways. Bless those in the recovery and treatment programs with the compassion to assist people whom they serve toward an effective path to a healthy life. Bless the parents, spouses, grandparents, and siblings who care for those who struggle with addiction, to have the fortitude to help guide their loved ones to a life free of harm. And finally, we ask, dear Lord, that you bless those with strength who are battling addiction, that they, with the help of God, with the help of the loved ones, and with the help of those in the community, will be able to find those days when they can once and for all attain sobriety. Let us, Lord, now remember our deceased loved ones with the comfort of knowing that their struggles have come to an end and they now rest in peace. If it be your will, Father, grant what we ask of you this day. Shalom, peace, amen.
So I want to thank everyone for coming out and supporting one another this evening. I want to give a special thanks to St. John's for allowing us to use this wonderful facility. Special thanks to Jennifer Smith, who's responsible for a lot of the planning and organization of the evening. Tori Farr, Dean Brewer, Elizabeth Klinger, and Tim Weber, who are on the planning committee, and the other members of the State's Attorney's Office for their time and effort put in this evening. So that concludes this evening's drug overdose and prevention vigil. Please join us, if you would, in the back for light refreshments, and on your way out, feel free to take with you a memory stone. Those memory stones are there for folks to take, write the name of a loved one lost to an overdose, and you could write that on there and leave it somewhere special. It could be a room in your home, backyard, or a park, somewhere you feel connected to your loved one. Thanks again for coming. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and God bless.